Welcome back, everybody, to another episode from HardHat Uncovered. We're coming to you from the studios of HardHat Uncovered in Alexandria, Virginia. Welcome back, Lieutenant Oates.
Hey, what's up, man? Good to be back.
Welcome back, Mr. Hipple.
What's going on, guys? Good to see you.
Hey, Mr. Hipple, hip nip.
Hey, that ain't it. Hey, if we're giving me a nickname, that ain't it.
So that's actually, I was trying to figure out where do we bring this up. So we're
Good
going
segue.
to bring it up now. So I've been asking, if you've listened to a few of our episodes, I've reached out asking our listeners or our viewers to come up with a nickname for Dylan here. So I think we finally figured out a way how we can do that. So if you're listening, we're going to actually do a giveaway. So we actually have a brand new Klein bag that is a dropped object prevention.
And it's a nice one. It's the canvas leather bag with the rope as the handle, and it's the dropped object one with the self-closing lid. So I think those are like, when I was buying them for my guys back in the day, I think they were like $120 a piece. Yep. So, this is a pretty nice giveaway.
So this is going to be our first giveaway. Now, if you're on YouTube, or if you want to go to YouTube and look on our episode 10, this is actually indoor air quality. Take a look at that, and I'm holding it up to the camera. It's pretty fancy. It's a pretty fancy bag here. So if you can come up with a nickname for Dylan Hipple that
we'll vote on it.
We'll vote on it.
We'll
vote on it. So you can either give a comment on the podcast or comment in the section below in YouTube, or email us at hardhatuncovered@gmail.com. But this is a pretty fancy one. So for you people that what's that called? ASMR? People that like listening to sounds?
Oh, Velcro. I had no idea what you were talking about. ASMR.
ASMR? Oh, man. That's a whole nother topic. But
yeah.
It's people are actually just listening to sounds of stuff like that. People chewing
It's like
on
those
food.
satisfying videos, like where people are cutting clay and stuff.
Yes. It's exactly what that is.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Well, just for reference, my nickname back in the day used to be Prime Time, but I think I'm out of my Prime Time days now, so.
Yeah. So, actually, I remember that drink. We were talking about that. The name of a drink was called a buttery nipple.
A buttery nipple?
Yeah, that's the name of an alcoholic drink. So,
all right.
Alcoholic beverage.
I don't think I want one yet. No, thank you. All right, guys. First thing I want to do before we get started into our main topic is I just wanted to give a couple shout-outs, and I appreciate everybody that's been listening, everybody that's been reaching out to us. So shout out one of my buddies, actually, Caleb Vescovi, commenting on topics he wants to hear something about how upper management gets will buy into a safety program. So we're going to eventually get one out on that. Wyatt Bradbury, always comment and support and liking our stuff, so appreciate you, man. Ryan Binkley, Chad White, sharing posts. It helps out a lot, sharing, so keep doing it, guys. We appreciate it. And then Alexander Norwood, he also reached out wanting to hear some podcasts on quality skills advice for young safety professionals. So that's something else we're going to work on in the future. So just know it's coming down the pipeline. We appreciate everybody that likes, comments, shares our stuff. Every little bit helps, so keep it up, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. Keep sending y'all comments, shout outs. Make sure y'all are liking all of our podcasts and YouTube videos. Subscribe, put your alert on, whatever you got to do, just to make sure that you're getting our notifications and stuff like that. So, but again, thanks to everyone out there that Dylan mentioned and everyone else that is listening, because the reason we're doing this is for y'all out there in podcast land or YouTube land, however you watch us or listen to us. All right. So let's get into happy birthday, Lieutenant Oates.
That was yesterday, brother.
You know what? There's still a time zone, I'm sure, out there that is still yesterday. Maybe. I don't know. I might be completely wrong.
I don't think that's how that works.
All right. So, happy late birthday.
What are you, 65, man?
You don't look a day over 62.
63 and a half,
Yeah, well, how old are you really? What, 48?
49.
49?
Mhm.
Getting up
Man.
there. Almost
Yeah,
half a
man.
century.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well,
But I feel like I'm probably 70.
I thought you were going to say 25, but
No,
nope.
I'm not going to even
Nope.
cheat myself like that.
I went the other way.
No. Mm-mm.
It's starting to creak a little more when you wake
Sounds
up.
good, but you know what I mean? That ain't the truth.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
People say, oh, I feel like I'm. No, you don't.
Yeah. Hey, another thing for anybody watching on YouTube, we got some nice gear here we're sporting. If you look at Lieutenant Oates over there, he's got our new HardHat uncovered polos and hats. If we get enough interest one day, we'll start making these things up and selling them. So
the hats look sharp.
I like the hats a lot. Yeah.
I'll zoom in on the video for your
Yeah.
hat there. No, look in yours. There you
Oh,
go.
oh, okay. Hey.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, so indoor air quality. Now, I know this is a subject actually that's going to touch a lot of the industries out there, and not just when it comes to construction or maritime or longshore or anything like that. This actually will affects general industry. It affects the office worker. It affects the delivery drivers that have to go into warehouses.
Yeah, basically anywhere that's got a building it can affect.
Yeah.
Anywhere that there's air circulation, it can be affected. So even construction site job trailers.
Yep. So there is an ISO standard out there that actually covers this. That's the building environmental side, which is the ISO 16814 2008. So we're trying to throw some more of these ISOs out there because we have listeners out there that don't live in the United States. So we refer a lot to OSHA and FPA and stuff like that. But the ISO is the common standard that's an international thing. So. But yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, so one of the main reasons we're talking about this topic, indoor air quality, is because it affects a lot of people, and it affects their health, their comfort, their well-being, and really can even start to affect your productivity. So there's lots of ways to look at this. OSHA has recognized that IAQ, indoor air quality, has been hazardous to workers' health for a while, so they actually have some good reading information on it if you guys want to look it up. But we're going to dive a little further into the topic today.
Yeah, and one of the good resources that's out there is the EPA. Again, because this has affected not just the workplace, but schools. So school children are affected by it, and the office worker, and just so many people. So Dylan, give us a little bit of background. Actually, what is indoor air quality?
Yeah, it's just what it sounds like. It's the air you're breathing when you're indoors, right? So just for reference, think about an office worker. They spend roughly 40 hours a week, probably more, in a building. What are they doing in there? They're working, they're eating, they're drinking, they're studying. Some people sleep in their office. So they're affected by the air that's in there. A lot of that environment comes from makeup air, and the effects of that makeup air can be detrimental. And more people suffer from indoor air pollution than actually outdoor air pollution because it's a lot more concentrated. It's a lot more you're easily affected by it in large quantities when you're indoors.
Yeah. Hey, and I just want to clarify, when you're talking about people that sleep in their offices, that's typically not the safety professional.
Never, not once.
So I know some people out there want to take a jab at a safety professional when you said that. So
Hey, thanks for protecting us, man.
yeah, and one of the things that makes the indoor air quality so tough to control is because there's no cookie cutter plan. All these buildings are, built in different decades, centuries, eras. Not only that, it's the makeup of a building can be different. I mean, buildings can be side by side and be completely opposite on how they were constructed, how they're designed, their functionalities, just the mechanical makeup of it. So that's what makes indoor air quality so tough to maintain and just to get a handle on.
Right. I mean, we're talking about all these things that affect it, like the site of the building itself, where is it located? Is it next to an industrial plant? Is it located next to a chemical plant? So what are the pollutants coming from the neighboring buildings? You know, are there renovations going on inside the building or outside the building that are creating, you know, dust and other types of, you know, air quality issues? Is there a maintenance program for your building, for the air system? Do you have too many people for the building itself? So, you know, if we have this small room full of 30 people, the carbon monoxide makeup is going to be, you know, really high. And then also just what activities are going on inside the building. So all these different things affect the indoor air quality.
Yeah, you know, and it's a good point you just made about how many people are in the building. You know, typically that is covered when it comes to, you know, the fire marshal will say, okay, this, you know, this building can have 150 people in it.
Right.
You know, but the fire marshal's concern is when it comes to having to evacuate the building. So the fire marshal's concern when he puts that limit on the capacity is not the indoor air quality, but it's a good point that you brought up.
Right. It's how many people can we get out of these doors in a timely fashion. It's not the actual air makeup that they're breathing.
Yeah, and some of the tell signs that you might see in your building. So, like, if you got a kitchenette in your office building, and you have dust sitting on your microwave, if you have dust on the countertops, you know, just anything like that, dust on the trash cans, those should be some telltale signs that you're probably having some indoor air quality issues, you know, in your building. You know, so it's time to start taking a look, you know, at your HVAC systems and things like that. But not just that. So I know we're talking about some of the airborne stuff, but you also got to consider, you know, radon and stuff like that that's actually coming from underground that can actually come into your building.
Yeah, moisture is another big one. So you're getting any type of moisture, you know, creating damp areas that can grow mold. So there's, you know, reason to take precaution on anything like that.
Yeah, and I was thinking about actually when we were talking about radon, or when I just mentioned it, you know, back in when I lived in Nebraska, all of the homes had these little radon detectors.
Right.
That, you know, that were down in the basement area. I thought it was the craziest thing because, you know, where I'm from in Texas, we didn't have any basements, so that was that was something different for me. So also improper temperatures in your building. So sometimes you have the office next to you, the office mate, or, you know, roommate, however you want, the office mate, and then you know,
everybody wants to have different temperatures.
Right.
You got Betty Lou over here at 80 degrees, and then
you got
Junior.
Jim, yeah, the one sit at 68, and, you know.
Yeah, so that the difference in temperatures creates that relative humidity and the moisture and the, you know, all kinds of issues with your air quality.
Yep, and then you got people want office fans, and then you got somebody else have office heaters, you know, under their desk, and then they got humidifiers and dehumidifiers. And
Right.
all of those things play a big role when it comes into the indoor air quality. And so those things that you got to look at when it comes to not only your office, but your warehouse, your storage facility.
Yeah. Most complaints, though, with IAQ, I'm going to keep saying IAQ. IAQ is indoor air quality. It comes from, you know, flaws in the building design itself or inadequate maintenance of the systems in your building that make up the air, the enclosures, the envelopes, the plumbing, the HVAC systems. Those types of systems all need maintenance, and failing to have a maintenance schedule can affect the IAQ.
Yeah, and you know, there's so I think there's a lot of factors that we could talk about. You know, if in your building, if you do things like, you know, I worked in one facility where we had the aerosol puncture drum. You know, so you could put a spray paint can that's already been used, and you put it in this drum, and then it, you know, anything that's left in it, it'll puncture the aerosol and put it down into the drum. And the goal of that is to capture any aerosols that are left. However, I've been in facilities where they should have changed out the filter or removed that drum, you know,
a year
and a half ago.
Yeah.
And so all these things, you know, play a role in your indoor air quality. So I would say if you're listening to this, it's probably time, if you haven't done it here recently, it's probably time to go and just do a walkthrough and really take a look at all these things that we're talking about. that could be affecting your IAQ in your building or your facility.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of benefits of doing these things. There's benefits of mitigating the IAQ problems. You give your workers a general sense of comfort, health. It's better for them long term to be in a building where the air quality is good. I mean, that's pretty obvious, right? You know, you're breathing in good quality air, you're going to sustain your life. Typically, worker productivity is decreased when there's poor IAQ. So on the flip side, you know, you have good air quality, you're going to increase productivity, especially when it's adequate.
Yeah, and so whenever it comes to some of the symptoms like we're talking about, I mean, it could easily make a difference between your employee being tired on the job site or not being tired.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of different health effects that are associated with indoor air quality. You know, a lot of people commonly mistake them for things like allergies, you know, stress, just a cold, flu. But, you know, if there's multiple people going home sick, you know, feeling sick or ill at work, and then the second they walk out of the door, they feel better a couple minutes later. Not the second they walk out, but a couple minutes later they start to feel better. That's a pretty good clue that there's something wrong with the air quality inside of their work environment.
Yeah, so if you have an employee that's always, you know, completely fine, and all of a sudden every time they're sitting at their desk, they're getting watery eyes or itchy throat, they're coughing, sneezing, you know, and I've seen several scenarios where that's happened, where people will even come out and say, man, you know, I'm doing fine until I come in this building,
Right.
or you know, I never sneeze until I come into the office or something like that. And so
those are all clues. Like,
yeah.
think of those as clues to what's actually going on inside your building. And if you're a building manager or building owner, or it's your responsibility as the safety professional to, you know, protect these workers, if you don't respond quickly to these types of complaints, you're going to have some serious adverse health consequences long term for these employees.
Yeah, I mean, because what we're talking about now, the itchy throat, watery eyes, that's kind of the lower level stuff.
Right.
But I mean, so let's progress that a little bit more. So some people have the tendency to or you know, have the effects where they'll have headaches at work. They're feeling dizzy, but once they get outside of that building and get some of that natural fresh air, you know, they're good to go. You know, some of the more severe scenarios, you know, there's people that have get asthma. You know, or just muscle pains, fatigue, rashes, and stuff like that have come just from sitting in a building somewhere.
Yeah, so I mean, there's all kinds of things that play into that too. So it's, you know, the specific type of pollutant that they're breathing in. What's the concentration of that exposure? You know, are we having a high concentration or just a low dose? And then the frequency and duration. You know, these are all things you need to take into effect when analyzing your building, basically.
Yeah, and when we talked about silica in the last episode, we were talking about how pre-existing medical conditions can play a factor in it.
Yeah, someone's got asthma, man. Before they walk into a building with poor air quality, it's going to really affect them.
Yep, and then, you know, just like I mentioned before, you know, or in the previous episode, you know, COPD and stuff like that. Those individuals that already suffer from those type of things, when they come into a building like that, you know, it's going to be 2 times, 3 times worse. For those individuals.
Yeah, and, you know, what are some of the long-term effects, you know?
Yeah, and respiratory diseases, heart diseases, cancer. And it's hard to think in your mind that, hey, how can poor IAQ, you know, give me some type of throat cancer or, you know, lung cancer? You never know.
But you're exposed to it all the time.
Right.
You know, that's the biggest factor. You know, you going to work, especially if you've been working in an office for 20 years, 30 years, you know what I mean, in the same building.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're exposed to it every day. So you don't think about it, you know. You just think that, you know, every time I go in this office, my throat starts to hurt, you know what I mean? My chest starts to, you know, hurt a little bit.
Yeah, you don't associate it with,
Nah.
you know, poor air quality.
Right.
Because you don't know any better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, actually, when I was about 18, I started working in a custom paint and body shop. And sometimes I'd go into the mixing booth area, which was connected to the paint booth. And if somebody was in there painting and I was in that area doing some mixing or something like that, I could start to taste the paint and stuff in the back of my throat from that was escaping from the paint booth. And so that has an effect on someone's long term. You know, think about those people that are in that industry that are mixing paints, painting cars and stuff like that are doing it for 20 or 30
I
years.
know, right?
Yeah, so those all come from a specific type of exposure. You guys ever heard of Legionnaire's disease or Legionella? And that comes from water. So that's when you have a bacteria growing in slow moving or still water. So these are other things you're going to look for when you are surveying your building. Is there an area where water can get in? Is it leaking? Is my building always damp? Because if so, you're going to have workers contracting this, Legionnaire's disease.
Right.
Yep, and that's a big one for if you're listening and you have your buildings are kind of in the southern states, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Texas,
Swampy.
Louisiana, that is a big deal, and you could tell a difference when you walk into a building. You can almost just feel that dampness that's in the atmosphere. You almost feel, like you're walking into a sauna, but it's not a sauna. It's your work site.
Yeah, and I mean, in those types of environments, you have all kinds of bacteria, funguses, mold type things like that start to grow. So, and those all have adverse effects, as we know.
Yeah, yeah. And I've seen, being down working in the Gulf Coast region for so many years, I saw companies just try to do the quick fixes, and they would just throw these little chlorine tablets just all over the floor where there was water dripping on the concrete or something like that. The quick fix. Oh yeah, it's gonna. But yes, that's a quick fix. But that's a Band-Aid on an issue.
Yeah,
that's a Band-Aid on an injury that needs stitches.
Yeah, exactly. The best way to do it is to find where the source of the dampness, find out where it's coming from, and eliminate it completely, right?
Yeah, because it might. So some of the factors might not even be coming from your building itself. It might be the source of it might be coming from another building.
Right.
So some of these buildings that are built side by side, one building could be having a leaking issue or something like that, and then have an effect that it's leaking off into. So you're just trying to do this. Hey, I'm gonna put some Kills primer on my wall there just to get rid of that that mold that's growing through, but you haven't fixed the problem.
Right. And you got to think about the buildings like Junior just said, the buildings next to you and the things they're doing. Where are you drawing your makeup air from? Is it right where the other building is blowing out all their bad stuff? Is your building located right next to a highway? Why would that be an issue? If my building is located right next to a busy interstate, exactly. And like I just said, think about where your makeup air is coming from. Is it bringing in all those exhaust fumes into your building?
Yeah, and some of these older buildings, they might have. We were discussing this before, and some of the older buildings, they were built in a manner where if it was a warehouse, they didn't really care about how tight the construction was going to be. They didn't care if they were going to lose a little bit of heat or lose a little bit of air conditioning, Right. And so nowadays they're building the buildings a lot tighter to prevent that air loss, to save money on their light bill. But so if you're in an older building, that goes right into, think about if you're driving in like a industrial district. You got all these 18-wheelers coming by, and now all of that, those exhaust fumes and all that, they're making their way in because there's cracks in the building.
Right.
The windows don't seal because the building was built in the 50s, and so the window sills should have been replaced 20 years ago. They still haven't been replaced, so all this fumes are leaking into the building.
Yeah, and another source that factors into it is the system design and the maintenance of the building itself. Specifically, I'm thinking about the HVAC system. Is it functioning properly? Do we have negative pressure inside or outside? Are they equal pressures? Because if we have negative pressure, then we're bringing in outside pollutants into our building.
Yeah, and so I just mentioned about not replacing the window sills and stuff like that. So let's just say if it costs I don't know, $100 to replace a window sill, and an employer is not willing to do that, what are the odds that they're going to want to drop $30,000 on replacing their HVAC system?
Right.
What are the odds they're going to want to drop $50,000 on replacing all the windows and the HVAC system and the door seals?
And this is where, as a safety professional, you start looking into the cost-benefit ratio to figure out, okay, this is what it's going to cost us now, But, in 30 years when all these people were filing claims
Right.
against us, we're talking millions of dollars.
Yep.
So you got to use that that cost-benefit ratio to your advantage.
Yeah. Hey, but we save 50,000 a day.
Right, absolutely.
You know.
Okay. Whatever
Lost
you say.
10 million.
And so when it comes to the HVAC system, that it's a tough deal, especially if you don't already have that in your mindset. Like, let's just say an industrial hygienist, they understand how the airflow is supposed to work, and the negative pressure, like you talk about, or positive pressure, that when it comes to airflow. So, our recommendation is if you're not familiar with that kind of stuff, and this is one of them areas where you don't have to go and hire a hygienist when it comes to the HVAC. There's HVAC companies out there that they already know how an HVAC is supposed to work. They already understand the system designs and stuff like that. So you don't have to go and hire an industrial hygienist for this scenario. You can just get the local HVAC company to come out and look at your building design.
Right, and each HVAC system can be specifically designed for each intended purpose. They can modify the temperature, the humidity, the airflow, all relative to how many people you got working inside that building. So each HVA system can be specifically designed for the building that it's going to be put in.
Yeah, especially if you think about some of the networking rooms that has all these servers and stuff like that for your computers. Those rooms need to be a lot cooler than the rest of the building because of the heat that those servers are creating, and things of that nature. So, that's a good point. We also got to take into consideration some of the rooms do have to run cooler, or some of the rooms might have to run hotter. For certain chemicals or whatever that you might be storing, or something to think about is the local exhaust. So you'll see this a lot in. Where there's a lot of welding going on.
You're right.
So let's just say if a company has a production line and part of that phase is they have 10 welding booths set up, or they'll have 10 tables set up where welders are welding. And so, you have to have some type of local exhaust ventilation that's, like an overhead vent or something that's sucking that air from that work.
So some other things, kitchens, labs, maintenance shops, parking garages, beauty and nail salons, even laundry rooms, as disgusting as that sounds, all have to have a local exhaust ventilation system.
Yeah. You're talking about laundry rooms.
Well, think about it.
Well, I mean, it's funny because the way that I know that the little aluminum exhaust tube off my dryer has come off when I walk into the laundry room, and the windows are all fogged up, and it feels like a sauna in the room. Yep. And I'm like, oh man, that little
the pipe popped off again. Yeah. Your flex pipe there. Yeah.
Okay, and then so we talked about some of the scenarios in the rooms, having to adjust your HVAC and stuff like that. But now we're talking about some of the building material that you have to consider whenever you're using an HVAC system, stuff like that can also have an effect in your indoor air quality.
So as soon as you said the building material, first thing I thought about is like you go to a construction site and they're storing all their material outside, and it rains, and then they install that material soaking wet. So what happens when you install soaking wet insulation or drywall or things of that nature? You're already putting that dampness, that environment to grow mold inside the building.
Yep, and then it's stuck in there.
Yeah.
Now you've drywalled it in. The insulation was wet, or whatever material. Maybe the boards were wet, or whatever the case. And now you've encapsulated inside your walls. Now you might not see any short-term effects from that. So in 6 months, you might not see that there's mold spores or anything like that. But give it a year, give it a couple of years, and then all of a sudden you start seeing the black mold seep through the drywall. And you can't figure it out why. And then when you take off that piece of drywall, all of a sudden everything in there is just black mold all in there.
Yeah, and as a safety professional, these are things we want to look for on our job sites. Whether it be a construction site or industrial site. Where are we storing material? Are we letting it get wet? Are we installing it wet? So these, believe it or not, it's affecting the IAQ down the road. So think about it that way.
Yep, and then also just the stuff that we're putting inside of the building. So the cabinetry, the furniture. A lot of people don't realize that pressed wood that's in some of this prefabricated cabinets and stuff like that, desk. They use formaldehydes. They use things like that to press that wood and to keep it together. And
even the stains and the lacquers and all that all gives off pollutants.
Yep, and you'll know because, and sometimes I think that we misinterpret it for like the new car smell or something like that, or we have new carpet, and so you have that new carpet smell or that freshly painted smell, and so we associate that with something new that's in our building. And not even realizing that could be creating a poor indoor quality issue in our office. And we don't even, like I said, by default, we're associating it with a new paint, a new wall smell, when that's really something that could be harmful for us, in that moment.
Yeah. Even certain building maintenance procedures can be a source for bad air quality. Think about the pesticides that are used outside, or the types of cleaners that are being used indoors to clean, the building. Those can easily contribute to, having poor air quality inside the building. If you have we'll just use the office building, for example. If you have your office building cleaned once a week, if that cleaning person comes in and then they leave the carpets wet and they allow it
to air dry.
They start to get that bacterial growth on the carpet, and then that contributes to the poor air quality as well.
Yeah, and something else, we're talking about, the individuals that come in the building. Now, I know Lieutenant Oates likes to come to work sometimes with that Old Spice on,
Right.
But how many times have you been in a situation where the scent of someone's perfume or cologne is too strong?
Oh yeah.
Or the air freshener that they have at their desk.
Right.
I would say candle, but an open flame at your desk is highly not recommended to have at your desk.
Yeah.
But all those things play a factor as well.
Hey, when you stink though.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Maybe we should start talking about hygiene. If you got to use that much perfume or cologne, maybe you should start taking a bath.
Right.
Yeah. So we opened up this section, of the podcast talking about what is indoor air quality, what is IAQ. We went into some of the just the backgrounds of it. We talked about the benefits of the mitigations. We talked about some of the health effects, some of the things of that. Where are the sources for this indoor air quality issues that where can they come from? Where's some possibilities? Some of the factors, whether it's from another building, your own building, from the underground, things like that. And so we actually just started hitting on some of the building features, like the drywall, some of the furniture and stuff like that. And then we closed it out just now with talking about perfumes and colognes and things like that. So, but what that's actually going to do, Lieutenant Oates, we're going to actually leave our listeners off on a cliffhanger.
Okay.
So if you want to hear more about those things, we're actually going to dig into more of the breakdowns of particulates, the breakdowns of the the biological side and the chemical side, the gases and vapors. So if you want to hear those things, which are very interesting, I guarantee it, then you're going to have to tune into part 2 of indoor air quality. So
leaving them right on the edge of their seats for this one.
This is definitely it's definitely a cliffhanger. I can tell you that. I'm almost want to go on, but we have so much more to discuss, just like we did with silica, that I don't want to cut anyone short from the things that we want to talk about. So with that being said, Dylan, what's our main
mission
goal?
Statement.
Yeah, what is our mission statement?
We're out here. We're trying to make a difference. We're trying to make change in the safety world. So, making a change impacts me. Making a difference impacts others, and making history impacts the world.
That's right. So I had to put him on the spot
Boy,
there.
I almost forgot our own mission statement there.
I had to
boys.
put him on the spot there. So again, coming to you from the HardHat Uncovered Studios in Alexandria, Virginia. Make sure that you're hitting that like button, that you're subscribing. Look for us on any podcast platforms. If you can't find us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to reach out to us to make sure that we get on there. That way we can just extend the mission that we have out there and reach out to all the listeners out there.
And you want to see Lieutenant Oates' beautiful face, you log on to our YouTube channel so you can see what he looks like.
Hey, and with that being said, go to YouTube. Look at this canvas. I'm holding it up again. Look at this bag. It's a Klein bag. Here's the Velcro. Here's the Klein bag that we're giving away to whoever can come up with a nickname for Mr. Dylan Hipple.
It's Flannel Friday. Just remember that.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.